Oh, okay, we're going to get going. So welcome everybody to today's discussion where we're going to be having a look at some of the things that have been going on with regards to saving our planet. Are they legitimate or are they ruses in order to get us, the unsuspecting people, to pay more money towards the big corporations? And I might just start with a story. I remember years ago when you used to go shopping in the supermarkets and you're going to get all your groceries, and when you paid, you're going to get the plastic bags and you fill up all your groceries with the plastic bags, and they were all part of the shopping experience. But then as time moved on, we needed to start to pay for these plastic bags because they became eco-friendly. And so, you're paying 15 cents now for the plastic bags. And nowadays, you can't actually get the plastic bags anymore. They're all paper bags. So was this just a clever ploy by Coles and Woolworths in order to get us to pay for our bags when we go shopping? Or was there something legitimate behind the whole concept of getting rid of the plastic bags? We're going to have a look at a lot of a few different issues today. Talk about wind farms and how in Queensland especially they're cutting down all of our forests that are meant to be there to provide oxygen for us to breathe. And if we cut them all down, well, it's not doing a disservice to the planet. And of course, we've got Sally, who's in the clothing industry, and she's told us that that's one of the biggest wastes there are. So let's start with Peter. Peter, you've been having a look at these wind farms in Queensland. Tell us more about what's been happening down in Queensland.
Did you send the link that I sent you to everyone, or do they watch it? Or what's going on basically is they've got these wind farms they're putting up in Queensland, which is it's just diabolical what they're doing. They're just going in and destroying rainforests to put up these wind farms. They're putting roads in mountainous ranges that are pristine rainforest. Like, it's just beyond. Like, if every Australian knew what was going on, they would be up in arms. Like, it's just crazy what the world is doing. We're just like, you talked about the plastic bags, for example. Like, everything in the shop you go and buy is plastic. Yet they won't give you a plastic bag to take all your plastic shit home with you. Like, it's that I do believe was a ruse to make more money, because I go out and my bin is always full of those paper bags that the people at the front house buy. They buy them and stuff them in my bin because I don't use hardly any waste. My bin's always empty, and they're always putting all their paper bags in mine. So there's 15 cents. They'd get 6-7 bags every shop, and they probably shop 2 or 3 times a week. But what is going on up in Queensland, I don't know if anyone knows, but they're trying to put up these wind turbines, and the amount of damage that they're causing to the environment is got to be way more than any benefit that the environment would have by getting natural energy. Like, we have shitloads of coal here. Why do we, coal is not the worst stuff to be burning out in the sky. It's not. Oh, Jesus fucking Christ. You want to fucking have a look at this? Oh, come on, listen to you. I'm fucking just about had enough of you, Brendan. Seriously, you got to fucking wake the fuck up. What China's building 80 a year over there. We as Australians use hardly anything. Do you know how much carbon dioxide is in the air? Do you know how much percentage is actually in the air that goes out into the air that causes all this damage that we're trying to knock down rainforest to put up wind turbines, for God's sake? It is absolutely disgraceful what is going on. Do you actually know what they're doing up there, Brendan? Do you know what they're doing in Queensland?
What you're talking about, Peter, is whether you believe climate change is real or not. The percentage of carbon in the atmosphere varies, and obviously it's not just carbon. You've got the various compounds and mixtures of carbon, from methane to CO2 and everything else in between. It's irrefutable that man-made climate change is happening. It's irrefutable. Coal is by far and away It's irrefutable. And it doesn't matter what you read, Peter. It doesn't matter what conspiracy shit you actually absorb. It's irrefutable among the scientific community across the world that this is real. And there are ways
They're
to
the ones with
address
the
it.
big bank accounts.
Look, you know my opinion on large corporations, and there's no issue on my cynicism and skepticism of large corporations. But what has happened with regard to climate change is, if you believe in it, we got to do something, because the risks are far, far greater than not doing something. And if you don't believe in it, well, to actually just mirror what you said, just fuck off and sit in the corner.
Well, let's ask this to everybody. Who actually believes in climate change? Who believes that the human's production system is responsible for the climate change? Or who thinks that it's probably another one of the stories that have been put out there in order to get us into fear? So let's have the hands up. Who thinks it's real? Layla, Margaret, Brendan. No, Layla doesn't. Brendan,
Jesus,
Lisa.
Sorry,
Sally, I can't see you. But I think I know what you would say. Right. So, Brendan, you've got.
Look, it's
Hey, Brendan,
Brendan,
there is
Stop.
dollars.
Let me finish.
Oh,
This
you've
is
got to
really
finish all the
easy.
fucking time.
This is really, really easy. All you have to do is actually examine the carbon ionization reported. And it's quite clear that since the start of the Industrial Revolution, that the percentage of greenhouse gases has gone up and up and up and up, and it's accelerated. Now, what the fossil fuel, and we're talking big corporations now, what the fossil fuel industry has done over the last 50, 60 years is that they have done what big tobacco and everything else did before them. They've delayed, denied, distracted, and they've fed shit to mushrooms. Mushrooms eat shit and they grow in the dark and they love it. And that's what we're talking about here. Now, if you don't believe that, you believe in every conspiracy theory that works, which actually makes no sense. But this is something that is evident, irrefutable, and clear, unless you're looking at the silly parts of the internet that tell you what you're already believing.
So, Brendan, you putting everybody a broad perspective of beliefs into one basket over there. A lot of people actually put their hand up, and I want to hear from Lisa, because you said that you don't believe. You don't believe man's responsible for the climate change. Why is that?
No, I put my hand up to say that I do believe that.
Oh, you do.
Sorry, you must have dropped out when I was listening to the question. I do believe that there is a major human influence in the climate change. And just a couple of weeks ago, I was driving through the Atherton tablelands, through the rainforest, and I was shocked in just a year ago how many more wind turbines there are on the hillside. And the gentleman I was traveling with, he actually works in civil construction, and I was asking him about them. And he said what they are doing, because they were kind of like just weirdly placed on the side of hills randomly. There didn't seem to be any kind of order. And he explained to me that what they're doing there is they're testing to find out where is the best place to place them. And then once they work out where to place them, that's when they will build the actual larger wind farms. Now, I haven't delved into it. Unfortunately, Peter, I couldn't access the file you sent through email. But I do believe that there is a major human influence. But just circling back to like Woolies and plastic bags and stuff, since they got rid of one-use plastic bags, which used to get reused in, garbage bins anyway. I used to use them as bin liners. Have you noticed the increase in Woolies and Coles actually pre-packaging diced up pumpkins and putting their pears and apples and that in boxes or plastic containers? So we haven't really reduced anything. What we needed to be doing was educating the public on how to reuse and recycle. So I feel like we've just basically robbed Peter to pay Paul.
Yeah, I think Woolworths and Coles have a very good marketing brand behind them that are utilizing every trick in the book to make us pay more and give them more profit and things like that. I want to go to Paul Cummings, right? Paul, do you believe that man is responsible for the climate change, or do you think it's a ruse by the to-be people?
I think we've got a responsibility overall, regardless of what the cause is. I mean, there would be some contribution, but there's so much, you know, every side's funded by whatever, and will put their part forward. So the coal industry says that coal's more efficient than this and that, and there's supposedly clean coal. I mean, I don't sort of quite get how that is. There's also the electric vehicle industry, where apparently the costs in actually creating the battery and the economics, I was reading something yesterday, it takes supposedly 7 years or so before an electric vehicle is carbon neutral in terms of what you've got to pay to actually manufacture the batteries. And then there's also then the cost of recharging it. I mean, how much of that is taken into account? And that's generally using your fossil fuels to power that with coal and things like that. It was interesting. I saw a photo overseas. Actually, no, it might have even been in, no, it was overseas actually. It was the equivalent of NRMA pulled up to an electric vehicle that had broken down on the side of the road, and they were using a petrol generator to actually charge the battery of the electric vehicle to get it going again. And there was somewhere else I saw where they actually had, a generator in the back of the car so that they could top it up if they stopped somewhere or couldn't get a battery. So there's a few weird things like that happening. So I got a little bit off track there, and just coming back to the plastic bag thing, there's so much with that. I was actually working for a hospitality warehouse that supplied goods for hospitality products in Canberra when all the laws were changing around plastic bags. So it was only the smaller ones. The thicker bags are actually not banned. So they take longer to break down. In fact, I've left a normal shopping bag out in the sun, and 12 months it will actually break down. Now, it's still got sort of microparticles and things like that, but they were actually made to, they're not biodegradable as such, but they will break down with sunlight. And what's happened, and as someone else said, used to use those for rubbish bags and things like that. Now you've actually got to go and either buy thicker rubbish bags, but takeaway places and other things, places are still using plastic bags, but they're using a thicker grade, and they're actually printing on it, this is not a single-use bag, please reuse it. And that actually gets around the laws because it's no longer a single-use plastic bag. And that's some of the stupidity of what's happening within different states and different things. I mean, there's so much more around the recycling stuff. Like the, they put the 10-cent levy on some bottles and glass that you can take back and be recycled, supposedly to encourage more recycling. But yet, and I actually took a photo and shared it on Facebook. There's all these other bottles, your cooking oil bottles, your wine bottles. There's no 10-cent levy on those, and you're using more of those than you are generally for drink bottles. And they can still be recycled, but they don't go through the machine. So what's the purpose of that? And also, I went to take back some bottles recently. So I had a bit of a collection, and there was a queue of people waiting, and my time was more valuable than what I was going to get back. And I actually gave up and went home because I was going to have to wait half an hour to actually put the machines through this bottle machine. I did actually go back a week or so later to do it, but in generally I leave them outside, and there's a little gentleman who comes around every week and picks them up, and he can have the money because it's not worth my time to go and do it. So putting it, and this, what was wrong with the yellow bin tops and the recycling? I used to recycle everything through that. But some public servant came up with the idea that was an old thing that we used to have years ago. I mean, South Australia still has it. Maybe they don't have a proper bottle recycling thing. So we copied something that was, in place years ago. So I feel it's a backward step. Anyway, I can go on. There's lots of other things as well, but that's just a few of them.
Look, I know that the recycling of the bottles, it's something I do for the kids. We've got a blue top bin, and we fill that all up with bottles and the cardboard boxes that they used to drink their poppers out of. And all up, I think they get $30 to $40 for the whole bin. So it's not a lot of money. It's money for the kids, and it's something for us to do together as a kids. And sometimes not all the bottles go through. I don't know why one bottle will go through and another one won't go through. So,
yeah,
so
and that is a problem. I mean, the other thing is that I was going to say, it slipped my mind.
Well,
Oh,
if
yeah,
that comes
come
back
back
to you,
Yeah.
did you want to say something, Adrian? Who was it that wanted to say something? Oh, Layla.
Okay, I've actually got a lot to say. So with everyone's idea of is man responsible for climate change? So there's a lot of proof that the water's rising is not happening. So if you see a picture of not just a picture, but people actually visiting Venice and the Statue of Liberty. The Statue of Liberty's water lines are the same from the 1950s as now. So there's no waters rising, major extra water coming from out of our cosmos. So water, if you understand water, is one unit. There's one unit, but the distribution all over the world, just a bit like money, is uneven. So the water unit is the same. It's a government use of, just like exploitation of other natural resources that we pay for. It's a way to tax it, pay for it, pay for your usage, pay for their machinery to cleanse it. And it's a lovely smokescreen to make us believe that we're contributing to, the betterment of our world. The government has the solutions for sorting out our carbon climate issues and our, recycling issues. So with regards to bottle recycling, bag replenishing and recycling, I can tell you that, my opinion, my apologies, I'll rephrase that. My opinion is to make people have psychological effects of my responsibility, guilt, shame, fear, and all of that stuff, to feel that if I don't do something, then the world is going to end in the bigger scheme of things. With bottle recycling, it's up to the country and it's up to the government to stop using these recyclable material and do it in a different way, back to barter days or whatever. So an example of that is at Woolworths. Now, they are asking you to take in your completed bottle of Morning Fresh, refill it, and you pay for the privilege of helping climate change with the same amount as an off-the-shelf bottle. So they're not giving you an incentive to recycle. They're saying, get your old get your finished bottle of Morning Fresh and go fill it up from tap, and you're paying for the same. It's like, they should be taking the onus of the extra price. Why aren't they doing that? Because they don't give a fuck. I can swear on here. I'm really
You can swear as much as you want.
So the bigger scheme of things is to keep, governments don't give a fuck. The bigger scheme of things is to keep us in fear and make us feel responsible. And this is the, enslavement of people thinking that they're doing a service to, all of these climate changes and thing that we're individually responsible. So it keeps us in a state of the negatives, panic, fear, taking responsibility, and us being good little citizens, we take that on board. All right. So governments have the solution for all of this. They have the money for the solutions. Why isn't Woolworths reducing the price of their manufacturing, that we're going to go take our empty bottle and, filling it up? Why aren't they making it cheaper for a refill? Why aren't they making it cheaper for a refill?
Yeah,
just to keep us enslaved. So it's another carbon tax has come out as, long, we've seen that conspiracy has come out to be truths 10, 20, 30 years later. So carbon tax, people are saying, holy crap, even corporations, they pay tens of thousands of dollars to help, carbon emissions and whatever, to the detriment of the truth coming out. Okay, well, it's not the detriment, it's everything comes out later on. That's my take on it. The government puts it back on the people, just the same as when COVID first started. They took their hands off and they said corporations need to we create a mandate that corporations have to get their employees vaccinated. So it's once removed, arm's length, hands off for the government, and that's what they're doing with all of these solutions that are available. One more thing, and I'll so lots and lots of great inventors and beautiful minded people have created solutions for less electricity, including solar panels, water running cars, endless patents, doing the good deed, taking it to the patents office, paying their good money, $1,400 to get something patented, to die in the next couple of years. If it was a good patent, they disappear off the face of the earth because they found that a natural resource, you can get electricity from the ether. All right. So there's a lot of conspiracies, quote unquote, that has happened like this. And that is because the government has a different agenda than reducing carbon emission and reducing plastics in the environment.
So the question, Layla, then becomes, what is their agenda? If they've got a different agenda, what is their agenda?
Their agenda is to keep us from understanding and connecting with our source, and keeping how should I say, churches alive, and once removed connections from source alive, if that makes sense. So that's the agenda. So we're extremely powerful beings, and when we come together as a great group like this, we know our power. Okay, so they will, if they come into this group, they will create a new act or new law that doesn't get passed through, a bill or a upper and lower parliament, and they pass something through for us to stop talking. This has happened throughout history, and that's the agenda, because we're gonna understand or understand or overstand how powerful we are.
Well, I love that. I saw Adrian put his hand up. Did you want to add something to that, Adrian?
Yes, I fucking bloody did. I have to agree with Peter and Brendan. I mean, Peter, yeah, I mean, it's stupid to be knocking down forests with one hand and putting up wind farms with another. That's like using that as a it's like I don't know. It's like fucking for virginity or something. It's stupid. But What we really need to understand is that it's not an ulterior motive of governments. It's just to sell more products. I mean, the world is run by commerce, and governments are financed by commerce. It may be overtly in America through the lobby industry, which is very established and very wide reaching, and to the extent that it is in Australia. And, I mean, I used to work in Asia, and they joke about like under the table payments. And I was with an Indonesian, and they said, we don't even need a fucking table. We just like pay the bribes directly, it's not under the table. And that's how they make money. Now, you have to be able to tax your citizens in some way. If Australia gets taxed every direction because we've got GST, and we have income tax, and we have state taxes and local taxes, which are supposed to be passive. And there are other countries where the tax is very, very overt, and we've discussed this before. You have the local mafia that represent the government coming around and shaking down citizens for protection money. So do we want to go for that and not pay tax and leave it to thugs with, metal bars coming around at night and knocking on your door? The whole concept of saving the world, we have to save ourselves. I have been a proponent of something that I believe World War III will be a war we all fight within ourselves, between our mind, heart, and spirit. It won't be with guns. We have to decide what we want as a future, as a race, and whether we do that in unity or whether we do that in individuals. Now, we know you can't do much or achieve much as individuals, but you can as a group, and that's what Layla's talking about. And it's also what Brendan's talking about too. You're talking about the majority of people are very easy to succumb to maintain their quality of life and not do anything. So, I'll give you my example. My father is from a different generation, okay? Silent generation before the boomers. And he saw we were collecting all the cans and the bottles and everything. And he said, fucking hell, has it come to that? Like, like, were we doing it for the money? But I come from a generation where in the 80s, we had the Keep Australia Beautiful. And you could go and return things. Actually, you couldn't return a lot and get 10 cents or 5 cents from everything. And milk, those plastic milk bottles, that you can't get money back on them. You can't get it back on wine bottles, only beer bottles. Now, is that elitist? Is that saying beer drinkers are entitled to 10 cents from what they drink, and wine drinkers are not? You put them there with opera patrons, and we should cut the funding to them? I don't know. But the point is, the human race is going through a huge questioning on an individual level. Are we going to send kids to war now? It's not the 1960s. It's not Vietnam, but they're looking at conscription around the world now. I was taught by somebody not to multitask, so now I'm going to read the text, which is multitasking. Okay. Yeah, well, that's an old phrase, Brendan. But to save the world, are we just talking about the environment, or are we talking about the people that do the damage to the environment? Because if you're talking about it like that, you look at the gun industry. Do guns kill people, or do people with guns kill people? So do people destroy the environment, or do companies run by people destroy the environment?
Just to say one little thing to clarify the phrasing that we're using, no one should be worried about the planet. The planet's been around for over 4 billion years, and it's gone through so many cycles that it's still there and it'll keep going. It's humanity we're talking about.
Well, the way I see it, if humanity's stupid enough to kill themselves off, they're stupid enough to kill themselves off.
But we don't. I mean, look
don't
at
think we
China.
will.
They were stupid enough to have a one-child policy because they wanted self-preservation. They didn't want to exploit their environment by letting everyone have 3 or 4 kids or 10 kids like they used to.
Yeah. All right. I want to pivot over to Sally because she's in an industry where there is a lot of waste, and I'd love to hear more about it because she knows all the stats with regards to this. So, Sally, can you tell us a little bit about your industry and all the waste involved in the fashion industry? Because you've got your own fashion brand. You use bamboo. By the way, I got some new undies, which are bamboo undies.
Is it the booty ones? I probably made them.
Yeah, I'd love to hear what you have to say about this.
Well, look, I am only new to it all. You know, it's opened my eyes 2 years ago, and it's gone down. It's opened a can of worms, and I've gone down a rabbit hole, understanding how wasteful it is. And there is no such thing as a non-wasteful garment. Like there isn't. It's you have to use chemicals and whatever, and it's trying to reduce it as much as possible. And it's like a lot of this stuff, it's kind of smoke and mirrors because so many of the big brands are saying they're into circular economy and they're sustainable, but it's the buzzword. It's like with the government and whatever saying it's just smoke and mirrors, but it is an actual real issue. It is. And it was interesting being at the Mind Body Spirit Festival because people are now worried about irritations and chemicals in their clothing because they're being affected from it. The skin's the largest organ, and what are you putting on it is clothes and, you know, also products. So it was interesting hearing from, you know, the punters in the trenches about what's important and the planet having a consciousness about what you're doing. So I think Paul was saying it, you know, you can't change what you don't know. So people are very conscious now about the planet, particularly at my kids' level, not so much our age group I'm finding, but, you know, in the early 20s and stuff, it's they only know what they're told or, you know, educated through uni and stuff, but, you know, that the planet can't sustain them down the track. And, you know, I'm actually with Brendan. The planet has been around such a long time and we're here for such a small blimp of the time, right? It's just everything is just all manipulation. And that's what I can't stand is manipulation. But people are wanting to do the right thing at the end of the day. And so I'm finding that in the clothing that people are very conscious about, you know, where it's made, for example. That's a huge thing, that it's not a sweatshop. And, you know, the quality of the fabric and where does it come from? The companies I'm using, they're very mindful about reusing water and reducing the number of chemicals. I mean, bamboo takes chemicals to break down, but, you know, cotton's even worse with the use of water. And then there's hemp. Everything is, you know, you're better off to just recycle what you got rather than, you know, reinvent something new is what my takeaway from. And so that whole circular economy of reusing stuff is, you know, top of the focus at the moment. But once again, it's the big companies are doing big billboards that they're sustainable, and then they're just not. It's just not. So it's the same thing but different hitting the fashion industry world when I'm realizing it's in the top 3 most wasteful industries in the world. That blew me away. I mean, that's just because I've got my head in the sand and I'd never thought about it. But the average person purchases 58 garments a year. Like, that's a huge amount. So you might get a couple of pairs of socks and jogs, but, you know, 58 pieces, like, we don't need it. And I've heard the other day that we are the most per capita, we are the biggest consumers in products, in consumables in the world. Like, we buy the most amount of garments. Yeah. I was at Ethical Clothing workshop on Friday, and that's what they said, that I think we were like 3rd, but we're top now. So we buy the most amount of new products, I suppose, if you want to call it that. But yeah, disposable underwear. What was that, Adrian? Used to be edible, now it's disposable. Yeah.
Well, when I lived in Hong Kong, you could buy paper underwear in the 7-Eleven, you know, for various reasons. You know, people didn't realize they were staying overnight at a town or something, and you just used it for sanitary purposes, and they were the paper. And very funny friend. We were on our way to China. She said they're very strong, and she said they're so strong you can actually reuse them. And we laughed and we said, "How long have you been reusing them?" And she says, "Well, I've worn them down to 3 elastic bands now."
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, they have it in all the beauty places, right? All the laser and spray tans and everywhere.
Yeah, they
It's
have them in lots of places. If you go for massages, sometimes they have paper underwear for people to wear, and hospitals as well.
yeah.
Yeah, I know that when my wife when she was younger, and I'll come back to you, Paul. When my wife was in her 20s and she did the Kontiki tour scene as a young girl normally does, she was so lazy she just had her paper undies instead of real undies. What did you want to add, Paul?
Yeah, within the fashion industry, there's the term fast fashion. So the price of things from overseas has come down so low that people buy often for single use or for a couple of uses, and then it ends up in the landfill. It often doesn't get back through or resold. Sometimes the quality is quite thin, but when you can buy, okay, a friend of mine needed some things recently and purchased online. Yes, she needed them. She was going to wear them more than once, but they were like, I think $10 to $15 for the things. And some of them, one thing she actually wore to her university graduation, and it only cost her like $15 and looked really good, but it was thin, but it wasn't going to last. But there's those sort of things that's causing the problems. And when you see, there's been some posts on Facebook where people have shown an example of what is sort of wasted in a day, and it's truckloads and truckloads of stuff. And, think about that in a year. And there used to be more recycling, and even the second-hand clothes become rags that mechanics use and things like that. I don't know that exists as much as it does now. I did see some in Bunnings or somewhere. They didn't look like rags to me. They looked like they're being manufactured to be used as wipes, not the second-hand type stuff. So that's creating a huge amount of waste, and then the resources and things that went into actually manufacturing it as well. But just briefly circling back to what I was going to say before about the bottle recycling, you're still paying your 10 cents on it, regardless of whether it goes in your yellow top bin. So where's that money going to? That's all being wasted. So it's almost like a tax that's been put back onto consumers. Not everybody's going to put theirs back through the machine. And I think that in itself is a poor management or an unintended consequence that the government either didn't see or just plain ignored.
Yeah, no, you're right in that. Not everybody's going to put it through. There are some people that do put their effort in, and they do walk around and pick up bottles out of the bin and things like that. And for them, it must be, I don't know, an extra $50 could be enough to take him and his wife out for a decent, nice feed or something like that.
Yeah, but what's the point? What's the point though, Paul? Because it's already, somebody's paid for that, and they probably have as well with some of their things. The trucks are still driving. The trucks are still driving down the street. The councils are still paying for the fuel for that truck to be operating, and the labour and everything like that. There's a cost in setting up those machines. They must cost a fortune. That's not ever taken into account economically or in the recycling thing. Then there's a separate truck's got to come and pick it up and get rid of it, and you can only cash it back in at Woolworths, I think it is, or you get a voucher for Woolworths, in which case you've then got to go to Woolworths. They're not always based at Woolworths, and cash in that money as well. And that all takes time and effort, and the economic cost, I actually think, would be a negative if you really balance it up.
Look, Paul, absolutely, you're right. It's not worth doing it. I think we all know that if we collect we got our blue bins and we fill it up with our bottles, and we, at the end of the month or at the end of 2 months, we take those bottles, we're going to get $40 or $50. It's not worth the time and effort for the average person. There are some people where that $40 or $50 is a lot to them. and they will go out and do it. And you see these people walking through just the shopping centres and pulling out the bottles so that they can cash them in later on. So, what's there to it? It's just for some people an extra 40 or 50 bucks so that they could, I don't know, maybe have a good night out with their spouse or take their kids out or something. Who knows? Margaret, I saw you put your hand up, and you've been listening to everything. I'd love to hear what your thoughts have been on the whole process.
Gosh, it's gone around in a circle and back, and I don't know where to start. We've gone on
The
so many topics.
conversation's been recycled. It's been recycled.
Oh, look, I think the whole recycling thing, I think, Paul, you've got a point there about the fact the actual costs involved on it happening, but people who maybe need the money get some money back. I have no question with that. People feel like they're doing some good or they're making a difference. It makes them feel good. That's probably why a lot of people do it. I have a guy that comes and collects ours. I don't have a lot, but I put it in a separate container near my bin, and he comes and collects them every week. He's an old bloke. No problem with that either. The whole bags, yes, I think it's a scam from the shoppers. We never used to pay for plastic bags before. Now we pay for every bag we use. And I think that's just been an easy way for them to make 15 cents every time we walk in the door if we buy more than a few items. I think that's a bunny grab. It's to make it look or appear that we're doing the right thing, and I don't think we really are. We all know that. What else? All the plastic products in supermarkets drives me crazy. I try to buy just my own. I've got little bags I keep, like cloth bags that I keep, and I put tomatoes and all that in it, or I just put them in my trolley empty, just grab 4 zucchinis and shove it in my trolley. So I try to do what I can, but that comes down to the individual taking that on themselves, which I think is what we've already discussed that. I don't know what else we're talking about. I don't know. I've lost track. I think we want to talk about global warming. I'm not going to go whether we believe or don't believe. I believe us as human beings, as we've grown in with population and such a big explosion of populations in some of the poorer countries in more recent times, has certainly had an effect on the environment. I don't think we can second guess that. More people, more pollution, more everything has got to have some impact, whether we believe global warming's due to coal-fired power stations or whatever it is. The fact is that the environment is changing, our weather patterns are changing, and that could be just part of a cycle of our big universe and our world that we have not experienced. Maybe this is part of it. I don't know. I'm not a scientist. But I do believe as humans, we're consuming more. We're a throwaway society. Like you say, if you can buy a T-shirt for $2 at Kmart for your kid, they're going on a camp and it's going to be trashed anyway, then I'll buy a $2 shirt for my kid. Terrible to say that out loud, but I've done it because I don't want to wreck their real clothes going on a school camp when they're going to do a mud run. So you buy a $6 pair of joggers, you buy crap that I say don't bring it home, throw it in the bin. I've done it myself. Not proud of it, but also it comes down to economics, what people can afford. But when you can buy things so cheaply, there's something wrong in the world. When you can I bought a dog bed the other day for $12 at Bunnings. Like, how do you do that for $12? Bring it into the country. It's been made by somebody, and it's the size of this booth. It's ridiculous. It shouldn't be that you can buy something for $12. So there's something wrong in the balance of all that, whether it's consumerism. I don't know what to put all that down to, but I do find it's actually quite a concerning thing. Wind turbines, there's a lot of talk about whether they are an economic way of generating power, efficiency of it and getting it back to the grid. I haven't done enough research on that, but I do know some people who know a fair bit about it. Coal at the moment is probably our cheapest source of energy. I come from a family of coal miners, and we don't have a good alternative. And even with these alternatives with solar, they're changing the guidelines on that now that they can't take all your power back, whereas there was a guarantee they'll take your power back at a certain rate. And now they're talking about you're not going to be able to do that as much, or there's going to be a fee involved. I can't remember the whole story, but that was just recently on the news. I don't know if anybody heard that. So sort of like they're changing, people have done the right thing to go to solar, and now it's going to effectively cost them because it's been such a big take up on it, which is great. But now they're going to start giving restrictions on when you can put that power back into the grid and what you're going to be able to actually recoup. So, people do the right thing, thinking they're doing the right thing for the environment or state in general. And now they're getting bitten. So That's all I've got for now.
I think that's quite interesting, Margaret, because my wife is quite a cynic. Is talking about the electric vehicle. And she's saying as soon as everybody goes onto the electric vehicle, all of a sudden electricity is going to go through the roof. So that's something to look forward to. We haven't heard from Alison, who's been sitting in the background. Alison, what do you want to add to this? And unfortunately, Alison doesn't have a camera. Are you still there, Alison? That's probably why she doesn't have a camera. Looks like she's not there. All right, well, I want to get back onto this global warming because in my lifetime, and then we'll get onto the shop. But in my lifetime, when I was younger, we actually had global heating was a big, no, global cooling, I think was a big fear. Then we had the ozone layer. And then we had, planets getting hotter. And now we've got climate change. So they keep changing the narrative around global warming. And Brendan's having a good smile. This is going to be fun. So I just find it quite interesting. And I was actually watching a video a few years ago of somebody from Alaska. And he was doing it out of a hut. And in the hut, there's this little plaque from the 1970s that said, by the year such and such, the glacier over there will no longer be around. And then you panned around and the glacier was still there. So now, Peter's mentioned the book, The Creature from Jekyll Island. And in that book, the author claims that the powers to be have profiled the masses and tried to figure out what's the easiest way to keep them enslaved for their own benefits. And they had a look at war, but war was a bit messy and all that. And the conclusion they came up with is global warming. And that's why they've been pushing the narrative of global warming, now global change. So this is going to probably get a bit heated between Peter and Brendan again. But Peter, you've read that book. What's your take on that?
I was trying to multi-skill then and type something that I was going to actually say, but I'll just read you this. For example, someone sent me this the other day. In the 60s, they said oil will be gone in 10 years. In the 70s, another ice age in 10 years. In the 80s, acid rain will destroy all crops in 10 years. In the 90s, the ozone layer will be gone in 10 years. 2000, ice caps will be gone in 10 years. None of it happened, but it all evolved into more taxes after that. And look, I just want to touch a little bit on climate change there and as to my views on it. I do agree with Brendan a little bit that the planet's been around for a long time and it's a pretty hardy place. I do believe that man is definitely not helping our environment by doing like what they're doing in Indonesia, for example. They're knocking down rainforests and putting up palm oil plantations and stuff like that. That is just like ridiculous. It's all revolving around money and it is destroying the environment. You know, they're bloody poor old orangutans haven't even got anywhere to live, you know. We are not, and what we have done here in Australia through ruining our riverbanks and sideways where we can't retain any water. Our water just goes whooshka straight out now, whereas years ago we are a floodplain. Australia is a floodplain. There's a guy who's very good at it. His name's Peter Andrews, and he's developed a way to actually rejuvenate the land that actually holds the water and retains the water and lets it soak into the environment and stay there for use in the drought. It's been well tested, but none of these things, you know, we don't help ourselves. We are not helping ourselves as far as that goes. But as to think that it's getting hotter and hotter and we're all going to flame and die and the planet's going to erupt, it's nonsense. That is a fear tactic that has been brought on by the governments, and it's all part of their agenda. They want us living in fear. They don't want us to go, you know what, it's not a big issue. Like I trade the markets, and I can show you I can bring up any market you like, and I can show you a section of that market, and you'll say that market's going up or that market's going down. But it all depends what time frame you're looking at it, and how much what you're taking into account. They say the planet's heating up. Okay, yeah, it might be heating up a little bit, but it's not heating up from millions of years ago. It's actually it's quite the actual. I saw things where they measured gone down and drilled right down through the ice caps, and they're going back like hundreds and thousands, millions of years down, and it just goes back. And basically, it was a lot warmer way back in the 1940s than what it is now. Anyway, that's just my views on climate. I do believe that we're not helping ourselves, but I don't believe that, we're all going to be living under, 3 feet of water in the next 10 years because we're putting too much carbon dioxide into the air. I think that's just a load of bullshit spread by the government.
Well, it's the top of the hour, so those people that have to go can go, and those that want to continue discussing can continue discussing. But I don't think as a man or a woman we should feel guilty about the planet we're living in and what we're doing. I think we're doing the best we can with the resources we have in order to live the best lives we can live. And I think that there's so much fear-mongering put on us by the authorities that if you can't use plastic bags anymore, and you're now going to use paper bags. But hey, we're now paying for the paper bags where, I don't know, 10 years ago they had paper bags for free.
I've seen that thing Peter's referring to, and that 10 years thing is like a real big extension of divide and conquer, where they try to make everyone have a common enemy. And it used to be terrorists, and before that it was nationalities or diseases, and this is just a way to get everybody behind them under the assumption that we have a common enemy, which could be climate change or oil or the polar caps or acid rain, to make sure everyone behaves themselves. And I think, Brendan would not be very far from us in the same opinion if we just described it a different way.
And look, let me follow that, Adrian, because I think we often do have slightly different approaches to the same issue. I'm quite clear that the two most significant factors for the ills in the world are the fact that we've got 8 billion people. And when I was born in the early 60s, there were 3 billion people on the planet. So call that a factor of 3. The second one, which is where we run into disagreement, is money is actually the most insidious influence. But the money is not them, they, the aliens, the Illuminati. Money is the billionaires. It is the Rupert Murdoch class. And they, I've said it earlier, and I will stick with it, deny, delay, distract. The fossil fuel industry has enough whistleblowers, as the tobacco industry had before it, and all other industries have as well, because human beings do have consciences, and a small minority will stick their head above the parapet. The fossil fuel industry controls so many governments because they have the resources, the money, and the power. And you don't have to look very far to see the influence of money and a population that's 3 times it was in half a long lifetime.
If we have a look at the growth of the human population, Brendan, it's always been exponential anyway. I mean, if we go back, I don't know, hundreds of years, there probably were only millions, and then there were billions. It's an exponential growth. And Correct. It probably will continue to be an exponential growth until the planet can't hold it anymore, and shit will happen, and the planet will figure out how to reduce the human population. If if it doesn't
Look,
put it off.
We've already done that.
We've already done that. And yeah, Peter, you and I may disagree on this, but that curve, we've virtually reached the top. The population will top out around the 10 billion mark. This was known 15 years ago with a Swedish demographer who's now dead. But clearly, the fact that the Chinese government took issue had an impact on global population. Was in India this time last year. The average family in India, like it had in Ireland, like it had in Australia, dropped from double digits to 2 or 3. And those 2 or 3 are not reproducing. So South Korea, the population is cratering, because if the factor to maintain population is 2.1, in Korea it's about 1.1.
That's
And
right. They actually closed down, I think, 147 kindergartens in Seoul because there were not enough kids to make classes. That is how dire it is in Korea. But we've had some people. We had some people leave the call, and now in the gallery here with the pictures, I've actually got Peter and Brendan side by side. So I think I'd like to see them hug before we end the call. They're so close now.
I've got them either side of you. You're in the middle. You're in the middle.
I got them either side.
But I see them together. It's just so nice that they reunited at the end.
Always. Difference but respect, I think, is my phrase.
It is.
Look,
We wouldn't be.
Brendan, I don't think everyone agrees 100% of what you have to say, as not everybody agrees 100% of what Peter has to say, or Adrian or Margaret or Paul or Leila. So, I mean, we're all unique individuals, and we all have our own belief systems that are running through us, and the way we filter information, and it comes out differently. That's what makes us
and we
unique.
also don't, and we don't have any other friends that are like you. That's why we're here. If we did, we'd be going and talking to them. So keep coming back, everyone, because this
It'd be
is what
pretty
we
boring
need.
if we didn't. It'd be pretty boring if there wasn't some differing views. Let's be real.
Well,
We'd have
that's the
nothing
whole
to talk
thing.
about.
I mean, last week I wish Gordon to come on when we spoke about religion, because he gave me a Bible bashing, and I go, fuck, I don't believe in this shit. But I had to listen for an hour. And told me that the only way is through Jesus Christ. Hallelujah. But he was so strong and so passionate about that. My brother-in-law is so passionate about religion as well. Everyone's got different views. Everyone's got different opinions. But with
It was
that,
probably good I missed that one.
Are you a Bible basher as well, Adrian?
No, I am not a Bible basher.
Oh,
Actually, I come from a.
I suspected not.
Our family in Townsville was actually blacklisted by the Mormons because my mum and dad used to toy with their minds to the point that it was dangerous to send them to our house. So they just bypassed our house because my parents would just fuck with them so bad.
I was kicked out of the Church of Scientology, so.
All right, I gotta go, guys. Nice to chat. I'll see you all soon.
It was good. Have a great week, everyone. Have a great week.
Interesting subject.
You're all on the radio right now. You're all on the radio right now.
Thanks,
the
guys.
last part of the.
We'll be listening to that.
Oh, fantastic. All right then, guys, thank you. And next week, and Peter, thanks for the topic today as well. So if anybody's got something that they specific, I know you wanted to talk about rainforest more.
We definitely didn't talk much about that topic, but anyway, I'm doing a little bit of research on it. We can maybe have another look at it. I want to do something serious about it. It's what's going on up there is just bullshit, and it needs to be on. We need to get it out onto mainstream media or get people to see it. What's happening, because it is just absolute lunacy. What's going on? So
can I just say something about that, Peter?
Yeah, sure.
So, I knew a friend in Byron Bay that, during, just after the COVID situation, actually during, we went up to Byron Bay and we met him, and he was on a particular tower where they wanted to do, they wanted to put 5G, and he remained with alternating people to stop, the telco companies and coming and putting the 5G tower. And they manned that tower for over 6 months. I'm pretty sure they're still doing it now, so that the 5G tower won't go into that area. So as a suggestion with the foresting situation, if there are people rotating for the forestry, and I'm sure they probably are holding up banners and trying to stop it. If they do it regularly and can't go past a certain point, they win. They actually win in the end, but it's a long and drawn out process. So I don't know if that helps if you're on a committee or something, to actually do something like that. And I can get you guy to just have a conversation about what he did. So he camped out there literally night, and most of the time he did it because other people were saying, oh, I can't do it in the middle of the night or whatever, because these telcos tried to come at all times of the day to do what they were told to do.